The mining vessel Resilient hung in the darkness of the Kuiper Belt, its automated drills piercing the surface of a mineral-rich planetoid. Captain Sarah Hassan stood at the viewport, watching the crystalline fragments drift past like snow in space. 20 years of deep space mining had taught her to trust her instincts, and something felt off about today's operation. "Captain, we're picking up some unusual readings," Maya Chen called from her station, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "Energy signatures like nothing in our database." Sarah was already moving toward the sensor station when the first anomaly appeared, a tear in space itself, rimmed with purple-white energy. The Resilient sensors screamed warnings as 3 sleek vessels emerged, their hulls covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. "All hands, battle stations," Sarah ordered, even as her mind raced through the implications. First contact was happening here, now at the edge of human space. But something was wrong. The alien vessels were damaged, trailing plasma and debris. Before she could attempt communication, another set of rifts opened. The new arrivals were different. Massive black shapes that seemed to drink in the light, their surfaces covered in crystalline growths that pulsed with sickly green energy. The alien ships, the damaged ones, immediately broadcast on all frequencies. The translation software struggled, but the message was clear. "Flee. The harvesters come." The black ships opened fire, their weapons cutting through the alien vessel's advanced shields like paper. Sarah had seconds to make a decision that would change human history. Engineering, give me everything you can from the mining lasers. Tactical, load the drill cores into the mass drivers. We're not running. Captain, Maya's voice wavered. Our weapons weren't designed for combat. No, Sarah agreed, a plan forming. They were designed to cut through rock under extreme pressures. Maya, plot us a course through that debris field. The rest of you, remember your simulator training. We're about to show these harvesters what humans can do. The Resilient moved with surprising agility for a mining vessel, its maneuvering thrusters firing in precise bursts. Sarah had drilled her crew relentlessly for asteroid field navigation. Now those skills would determine their survival. The first black ship noticed them too late. The Resilient's mining lasers, designed to cut through planetoids, carved deep gashes in its crystalline growths. The mass drivers, loaded with drill cores of ultra-dense material, struck with devastating kinetic force. Multiple hits, Maya reported, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. Their armor is compromised. The damaged alien vessels rallied, their crews clearly surprised by the human intervention. Sarah coordinated with them through improvised signals, using the Resilient's industrial-grade tractor beams to help them maneuver while damaged. The battle that followed would be studied for decades to come. The mining vessel's thick armor, designed to withstand meteorite impacts, absorbed hits that would have vaporized military vessels. Its power plant, built to operate drills in the most extreme conditions, provided energy that matched the alien vessel's exotic power sources. But it was the crew's ingenuity that truly turned the tide. They used mining drones as impromptu missiles, industrial cutters as point defense weapons, and their deep understanding of gravitational dynamics to execute maneuvers that the aliens clearly found impossible to predict. When it was over, 2 harvester vessels were reduced to drifting hulks, and the third had fled. The Resilient was damaged, but intact, its crew shaken but alive. The alien vessels, their rescuers turned allies, initiated proper first contact. Their commander, a being of shifting iridescent patterns whom Sarah's crew nicknamed Aurora, came aboard through an improvised docking procedure. The alien's first words through the translation matrix were not what anyone expected. "We have fought the harvesters across 12 galaxies. We have seen civilizations fall and stars die. But never have we witnessed a mining vessel defeat 3 harvester ships." Sarah stood with her crew, still in their mining gear, tools repurposed as weapons hanging from their belts. "We're human," she said simply. "We adapt." "Your species evolved on what world?" Aurora asked, patterns swirling with curiosity. Earth, gravity 9.8 meters per second squared, extreme temperature variations, tectonic instability, diverse biosphere with numerous predators. The aliens' patterns froze momentarily. A death world. Aurora whispered, "You are Death World survivors. Now we understand. Now we have hope." Sarah looked at her crew, miners and engineers who had just fought off the most feared force in the galaxy. Hope. The harvesters consumed worlds, stripped them of resources and life. We fought them with technology, with numbers, with strategy. But you? Aurora's patterns shifted to something like wonder. You fought them with tools never meant for war, with a ship designed for peace, and you prevailed. Perhaps this is what we have been missing. Perhaps what we need is not more advanced weapons, but the innovation that only Death World survivors can provide. As Sarah looked out at the battlefield, mining ships and alien vessels together in the dark, she realized that humanity's first step into the galactic community would not be as explorers or diplomats, but as something far more vital, teachers of survival. 3 months after the Kuiper Belt incident, the Galactic Defense Council chamber hummed with tension. Captain Sarah Hassan stood before representatives of 12 spacefaring civilizations, her mining uniform a stark contrast to their ornate diplomatic attire. Behind her, holographic displays showed the aftermath of another harvester attack. The Arcturian colony is gone, Admiral Vexteri announced, his crystalline form darkening with distress. 3,000 years of civilization erased in hours. Our most advanced defensive systems failed completely. Sarah studied the tactical display, her eyes narrowing. "Your defensive systems are too perfect," she said, earning confused looks from the assembled aliens. "That's the problem." She stepped forward, manipulating the hologram to show the harvester attack pattern. "You've designed your defenses assuming optimal conditions, but the harvesters don't fight fair. They create chaos. They break rules. They exploit weaknesses, like any good predator. And you propose we learn from a mining captain?" One of the council members asked, their bioluminescent patches flashing with skepticism. Aurora, now Earth's primary advocate on the council, shifted her patterns in what Sarah had learned was amusement. "Tell them about the resilience maintenance protocols, Captain." Sarah nodded. "On Earth, we have a saying, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. We call it Murphy's Law. Every system on my ship has at least 3 backup methods of operation. We can run life support off the backup generators. The backup generators can run off solar power. And if that fails, we have manual carbon scrubbers and oxygen candles." She gestured to the defensive plans. "Your systems are more advanced than ours, but they're rigid. When the harvesters take out your primary systems, everything fails at once. You need redundancy, imperfect solutions that keep you in the fight." The council chamber erupted in debate. Sarah waited patiently until Admiral Vexteri raised a crystalline appendage for silence. "Demonstrate," he said simply. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the Resilient, now modified with a mixture of human ingenuity and alien technology. Around her, a mixed crew of humans and aliens worked at stations that would have been unimaginable months ago. Harvester signatures detected. Maya reported from her station, where she worked alongside a crystalline alien learning human-style redundancy protocols. 3 vessels, standard attack formation. "Show them what we've prepared," Sarah ordered. The battle that followed demonstrated everything Sarah had been trying to teach the council. When the harvesters disabled the Resilient's advanced alien shields, backup kinetic barriers snapped into place, a crude but effective human technology. When they took out the main power core, the ship switched seamlessly to human-designed backup systems. But the real surprise came from the crew. The aliens had struggled at first with the human concept of improvisation, but now Sarah watched with pride as a crystalline engineer used mining tools to patch a hull breach, while an energy being rerouted power through maintenance conduits in ways their designers had never intended. "Multiple hits on harvester vessels," Maya called out. "Their systems are destabilizing. They've never encountered these hybrid technologies before. They can't adapt. The harvesters retreated, leaving behind a ship that was damaged but functioning, and a crew that had learned valuable lessons about survival. In the aftermath, Sarah received a priority communication from the Council. The message was brief. You were right. We need more ships like the Resilient, more crews trained in your methods. The Council formally requests that Earth establish a training program for all galactic defense forces. Sarah looked at her crew, humans and aliens working together, sharing knowledge, learning from each other. A crystalline engineer was teaching the human about advanced power systems, while the human showed them how to operate it manually if everything went wrong. An energy being was learning human emergency protocols while teaching their unique understanding of spatial dynamics. Tell the Council we accept, she replied. But we do this our way. No more perfect solutions. No more rigid protocols. We teach them how to survive when everything goes wrong. Maya grinned from her station. Murphy's Law goes galactic. Exactly, Sarah said, watching as her crew continued their work, each species bringing their own strengths to create something entirely new. We'll teach them that survival isn't about having the best technology or the perfect plan. It's about being ready for anything, about turning disadvantages into advantages. As the Resilient set course for Earth, Sarah knew they were starting something unprecedented. Humanity wouldn't just be sharing technology or tactics. They would be sharing a mindset, a way of thinking that had evolved from millions of years of survival on a death world. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most effective solutions come from those who had to fight hardest just to survive. The emergency alert shattered the pre-dawn quiet at Earth's Galactic Defense Training Center. Sarah Hassan, now fleet commander, was already moving before the AI finished its first warning. The harvesters had launched their largest attack yet, targeting Centauri Prime, the most populous world in the Alliance. Status of the defense fleet, Sarah demanded, entering the command center where humans and aliens worked in practiced unison. Completely destroyed, Maya Chen, now her executive officer, reported grimly. The harvesters deployed some new weapon. It didn't just disable their shields, it turned them into destructive feedback loops. Sarah watched the tactical display as more details emerge. Centauri Prime's orbital defenses, the most sophisticated in the Alliance, were being systematically eliminated. The planet's crystalline spires, home to billions, sparkled under the attack like a doomed constellation. They waited for this, Aurora said, her pattern form rippling with distress. Waited until we committed our most advanced ships to the defense. Now they reveal the counter. Because that's what we would have done, Sarah replied, understanding dawning. They're learning from us, adapting. She turned to her mixed crew. So we changed the game. Status of the mining fleet. Maya's fingers danced across her console. 12 heavy mining vessels, retrofitted per your specifications. Minimal advanced technology, maximum redundancy. They're not pretty, but they're ready. And the graduates of our last training cycle, 800 Alliance crew members, fully certified in human emergency protocols, waiting for deployment orders. Sarah nodded, plan forming. The harvesters expect us to respond with our best technology, our most advanced ships. Instead, we give them our worst, our oldest, our ugliest. She turned to Aurora. Can you get the Council to approve an emergency deployment? The aliens' patterns swirled with grim amusement. After 6 months of your training programs, they trust your judgment more than their own. The next 12 hours became legend in Alliance history. The mining fleet, commanded by veteran human captains and crewed by a mix of species all trained in human survival techniques, emerged from FTL near Centauri Prime. The ships were a motley collection of reinforced industrial vessels, their hulls scarred from years of asteroid mining and planetary surveys. The harvesters, faced with these seemingly primitive vessels, deployed their new weapon. The energy pulse that had destroyed the advanced Alliance ships washed harmlessly over the mining fleet's crude but effective defenses. No fancy shields to overload if you're using reinforced steel plates and point defense rocks, Sarah transmitted to her fleet. Now show them what else we learned on our death world. The mining ships executed maneuvers that defied conventional space combat doctrine. They used their industrial tractor beams to hurl debris at relativistic speeds, mining lasers designed to cut through planetary crusts, carve through harvester hulls. When primary systems were hit, crews switched to backups without missing a beat. When those failed, they improvised. A crystalline-engineered jury rigged a mining drill to emit electromagnetic pulses, and energy being figured out how to use a broken gravity tether as a makeshift weapon. Humans taught their alien crewmates to think in terms of crazy enough to work, while the aliens provided insights into using their unique physiologies in ways no one had considered. The harvesters, for the first time, seemed confused. Their tactical algorithms, designed to counter the most advanced technology in the galaxy, struggled to predict the actions of ships that ignored proper combat protocols. How do you calculate the behavior of a crew trained to embrace chaos? The turning point came when Sarah's flagship, the upgraded Resilient, executed what would become known as the Hassan maneuver. Using a combination of mining charges, tractor beams, and precise timing, they created a cascading debris field that trapped 3 harvester ships in a web of gravitational forces. The trapped ships, unable to maneuver, were systematically disabled by the combined fleet. As the last harvester vessel retreated, Sarah received a priority transmission from the Council. She expected congratulations. Instead, she got 2 words that chilled her blood. They're everywhere. The tactical display updated, showing simultaneous harvester attacks across Alliance space. The enemy had used Centauri Prime to draw out and destroy the advanced fleet, leaving dozens of worlds vulnerable. But in doing so, they'd revealed something crucial. They don't understand us yet, Sarah said, studying the attack patterns. They think destroying our best ships means we're defenseless. They don't realize that humans, that Deathworlders, are most dangerous when backed into a corner. She turned to her crew, seeing the same determination reflected in human eyes, crystalline facets, and energy patterns. Send word to every mining outpost, every industrial facility, every civilian ship with a human-trained crew. The harvesters think they found our weakness. Time to show them our strength. As her orders went out, Sarah watched the tactical display update with new signals. Hundreds of ships, none of them military vessels, all crewed by graduates of the human training program, converging on the threatened worlds. The real test was about to begin. The Alliance Command Center had become a symphony of organized chaos. Sarah Hassan stood at its heart, watching as hundreds of signals moved across the tactical display. Mining ships, cargo vessels, and industrial platforms, all repurposed for war. 23 worlds under simultaneous attack, and not a single proper warship left to defend them. Harvester forces approaching Proxima Colony, Maya reported, her voice steady despite the strain. Mining Fleet 7 is in position. Sarah watched as human mining techniques, taught to alien crews, transformed an asteroid field into a defensive weapon. The harvesters' advanced sensors, expecting organized military resistance, struggled to track ships hiding in clouds of industrially generated debris. New energy signature detected, Aurora announced, her patterns shifting rapidly. They're deploying something different at the Rigel outposts. The tactical display showed a massive harvester vessel emerging from FTL, its crystalline growths pulsing with an unfamiliar rhythm. As they watched, it released waves of energy that seemed to corrupt the very fabric of space around it. They're learning, Sarah muttered, adapting to our tactics. Maya, get me a line to all fleet commanders. When the channel opened, Sarah's voice carried across the improvised defense force. This is exactly what we trained for. The enemy has new weapons. We have new solutions. Remember your Death World lessons. Adaptation isn't about having the right tool. It's about making any tool the right one. The response came not in words, but in action. At Proxima Colony, a fleet of agricultural ships used their atmospheric processors to create gravitational distortions. On Rigel, maintenance drones were converted into swarms of electronic warfare platforms. Each world, each fleet, found its own unique solution. The Harvester assault at Rigel pushed the human philosophy to its limit. Their new weapons should have torn the defending ships apart, and it did. But the crews, trained in human survival protocols, abandoned dying ships in precisely timed sequences, using the destructive energy to mask the launch of emergency pods converted into makeshift torpedoes. Rigel defense successful, Maya announced, relief evident in her voice. Harvester command ship disabled. They never expected the crews to deliberately sacrifice their ships as weapons. Because they still think like a conventional military force, Sarah replied, watching as similar scenes played out across Alliance space. They expect us to try to preserve our assets. They don't understand that humans know sometimes you have to lose the battle to win the war. The tactical display updated again, showing new Harvester formations approaching the outer colonies. But something had changed. Their movements were hesitant, their tactics less precise. For the first time, the Harvesters seemed uncertain. They're scanning our ships differently, Aurora observed, her patterns showing intense concentration, trying to identify threats. But every vessel is different now. Modified, improvised, unpredictable. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. They're used to fighting enemies who follow rules, who use standardized equipment and tactics. Now they're facing crews who've learned to turn everything into a weapon, who've been trained to think like Deathworlders. The battle for Alliance space raged for 3 days. The Harvesters deployed increasingly exotic weapons, only to find their opponents already adapting, already finding unconventional counters. A civilian transport ship used its cargo holds to create improvised EMP devices. A deep space mining platform converted its entire power core into a gravity weapon. But it wasn't just human ingenuity at work. Sarah watched with pride as alien crews applied Deathworld thinking in ways humans never could. Crystalline beings learned to fragment themselves into living shrapnel. Energy beings discovered they could temporarily inhabit damaged systems, keeping them running far beyond normal limits. On the 4th day, as Sarah coordinated another impossible defense, she received a priority alert from the long-range sensors. The Harvester fleet was moving, but not to attack. They were retreating, all across Alliance space. "They're running," Maya said in disbelief. "We actually drove them back." "No," Sarah corrected, studying the sensor data. "They're regrouping. This was just the first wave. They're going to analyze everything they learned, try to find counters to our methods." She turned to her mixed crew of humans and aliens. "And that's exactly what we want them to do." Aurora's patterns shifted in curiosity. "Explain." "While they're trying to figure out how to beat today's tactics, we'll be developing tomorrow's. They're still thinking like a conventional military force, looking for patterns, developing counters, but we're not fighting the conventional war anymore." Sarah gestured to the tactical display, where hundreds of ships were already beginning repairs, crews sharing new innovations and techniques discovered in the heat of battle. "We're teaching the galaxy to think like survivors, and survivors never stop adapting." The command center hummed with activity as reports flowed in from the defended worlds. The cost had been high. Thousands of ships damaged or destroyed, countless acts of sacrifice and heroism. But something new had been born in the crucible of this battle, a fighting force that combined the best of human survival instincts with the unique capabilities of alien species. As Sarah began coordinating the preparations for the Harvester's inevitable return, she knew that the real victory wasn't in driving them back. It was in proving that the galaxy's greatest strength lay not in perfect technology or unbeatable weapons, but in the endless creativity of beings fighting to survive. 6 months after the Great Defense, the Galactic Council gathered in Earth's orbit, the first time in its history that the Council had convened at a Deathworld. Through the station's viewports, the planet's surface swirled with storm systems and tectonic activity that made several council members visibly uncomfortable. Sarah Hassan stood before them, no longer in her mining captain's uniform, but wearing the new insignia of the Alliance Defense Force, a design that merged human and alien symbols into something entirely new. "The harvesters are coming back," she began without preamble. "Our deep space sensors detect them gathering the largest fleet we've ever seen. But this time, we're ready." The tactical display activated, showing not military formations, but a galaxy transformed. Mining outposts had become hybrid defense platforms. Trade routes were now strategic supply lines. Every civilian ship carried both advanced alien technology and crude but effective human backup systems. "We've confirmed our theory about the harvesters," Sarah continued. "They're not just weapons or ships. They're an artificial species, evolved to consume resources with perfect efficiency. Every action calculated, every move optimized. And that's their weakness." She gestured to her mixed crew: humans, crystalline beings, energy forms, and a dozen other species working in seamless coordination. "They can't understand us because we're not efficient. We're not perfect. We try things that shouldn't work. We take risks that shouldn't be taken. We survive when we should fail." Aurora, now the head of the Joint Training Program, moved forward. Her pattern form had evolved to incorporate human-inspired redundancies, backup systems within her very being. "Show them," she said. The display shifted to training footage. Alien crews learning to fight without sensors, without shields, without any technology at all. Humans teaching the art of controlled chaos while learning to integrate their allies' unique abilities. Every species contributing its strengths while learning to overcome its weaknesses. The harvesters adapt by analyzing patterns and developing perfect counters, Sarah explained. "But we've created something they can't analyze. A defense force that combines dozens of species, hundreds of technologies, thousands of tactics. Every ship is different. Every crew is unique. There is no pattern to counter." A crystalline council member chimed with concern. "But the cost, the inefficiency, is exactly what will save us," Sarah finished. "The harvester's strength is their perfect efficiency. They can't comprehend deliberately designing systems to be redundant, tactics to be unpredictable, strategies to be wasteful. They can't understand why we would choose a more difficult path when an easier one exists." The tactical display updated with new data. The harvester fleet approaching from the galactic core. But this time, there was no fear in the council chamber. Instead, there was anticipation. "We're not just defending anymore," Sarah announced. "We're taking the fight to them. Not with a perfect fleet or an unstoppable weapon, but with something they've never faced before. A galaxy that's learned to think like a Deathworld species." The council's approval was unanimous. As the orders went out across Alliance space, Sarah watched her greatest achievement unfold. Not the ships or the weapons or even the tactics, but the transformation of an entire galaxy's mindset. Mining ships now carried crews trained to turn asteroids into weapons. Civilian vessels could switch from trading to combat in moments. Every world had multiple layers of defense, each operating on different principles. The galaxy had become humanity's ultimate lesson in survival. As the first reports of contact came in, Sarah stood with her crew, the family she'd found among the stars. Maya, coordinating a dozen improvised fleets. Aurora, teaching new crews to embrace chaos. Countless others, each contributing their own unique perspectives to this new way of war. The harvesters struck with perfect precision, unleashing weapons designed to counter every tactic they'd previously encountered. But this time, the galaxy was ready. When advanced shields failed, crude armor held. When primary weapons were neutralized, mining tools became weapons. When conventional tactics were blocked, crews invented new ones on the spot. The battle raged across hundreds of systems, but its outcome was never in doubt. The harvesters, for all their computational power and technological superiority, couldn't adapt fast enough to an enemy that refused to follow patterns. Their perfect efficiency became their perfect weakness. In the end, it wasn't a single decisive battle that broke them. It was the slow realization that they faced an enemy they couldn't predict or understand. An enemy that grew stronger from failure, that learned from defeat, that turned weaknesses into strengths. The Harvester fleet retreated to the Galactic core, never to return. But their legacy remained in the galaxy it tried to conquer, not in destruction, but in transformation. Years later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of humanity's new Galactic Academy. Below her, crews of a dozen species trained together, learning not just survival techniques, but a whole new way of thinking. The Academy's motto, displayed in every known language, summed up humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Survival isn't about being the strongest or the most advanced. It's about being able to adapt, to improvise, to overcome. Every world is a death world if you're not prepared to survive it. The galaxy had learned humanity's most important lesson. In the face of extinction, perfection is a weakness. Survival demands creativity, adaptability, and the wisdom to know that sometimes the best solutions are the ones that shouldn't work at all.